Be cool, be kind, be classy. The cupcakes so sweet and sexy. Have fun and enjoy the journey. Or just have a good attorney. No big whoop, no biggie. She lives near New York City. And not just a YouTube show. When you know, you better grab a straw. Learn about the law. It's cool here in the shade. Sipping motions and lemonade. Cool heads will prevail, kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Oh, Melanie Little is going live. Oh no, where is Melanie? Follow the island's melody. There's a concert within reach. No surprise, she's at Jones Beach. She heard some music far away. Captain Jack Stack Harbor Bay. He sings and his piano plays. Not all sounds are waterways. Speaking Yiddish and Latin, it's not just for Manhattan. It's for Goethe and Meshegas. Ridiculous that insanus. Oy vey, Marcus. Proceed, that's for schmucks. Be cool, be kind, be classy. My cupcakes are sweet and sassy. And not just a YouTube show. When you know. Cool heads will prevail. Kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Melanie Little is going live.
Good morning. Good morning, my friends, and welcome. Thanks so much for coming to hang out with me on this Tuesday, October 29th of 2024. October's almost over. Fall is here in full swing. The leaves are changed. They've changed here in New York. They're beautiful. It's getting cold, though. It's almost time to turn the heat on. Almost time. How's everybody doing today? I'm sorry about the Carly Gregg show that was supposed to happen this morning has been pushed to Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern because Bridget had an emergency court hearing that she had to attend this morning in Mississippi. So we had to push that to Thursday. The stream is still up. So if you've already sent the notification for that, you will still get the notification. But I decided to fill today with something else because I didn't want to leave you guys hanging because I know you were ready to come here at 10 a.m. Eastern. And we're back. And we're back going over the Delphi evidence that is not going to be shown to the jury as of this point. So if you've been watching, I can't say if you've been watching the Delphi trial because it is not broadcast in any way, neither by audio nor video. All of us are relying on the court watchers, law tubers who are in the courtroom every day for testimony, sleeping outside in line, or many people have volunteered to line sit for them. So that's great because they can at least get some sleep in a warm bed instead of sitting outside with blankets and fold-up chairs all night. There are only 24 seats per day for the public. And they need to sleep out in line all night. Yesterday was DNA day. DNA day. There was a whole bunch of DNA found at the scene. A whole bunch. Whole bunch of DNA tested. None of it matched Richard Allen. None of it. As you know, we started yesterday going over a motion that was filed last Wednesday by the defense asking for the judge to reconsider her decision in refusing to allow in testimony of Odinism / Norse paganism ritualistic killing, which she summarily denied back in August of 2023 when it was originally filed by the defense without a hearing. The argument now is that the state opened the door to this theory of the defense's by testimony that the sticks, which we are now finding out are branches, placed upon the girls at the scene were random and used to camouflage the bodies. It has been found out since, and I think it may have been yesterday, all the days are blending together. One of those branches was 7 feet long. So these aren't just sticks, they're branches. And oh my gosh, Jesse, I've been trying to get my Travis Hunter jersey. Nobody has it. Where did you get it? Fanatics doesn't have it. The CU bookstore doesn't have it. I can't find one, and I'm waiting because 12 is my favorite number. So, and also it's Travis Hunter. He's going to win the Heisman. Let me know where you got it because I can't find it, and I keep waiting for them to restock it. So, good for you for getting one. Okay, so many of you have asked about the sticks, and I want to show you because many of you are into tarot and symbology, runes. I want to show you a picture of the sticks so that you will have it in your memory. Branches, they're branches. And the pattern in which they were found, which the defense says was intentional. So take a look at this and let me know what you think. Or you'll just have them in your brain. Hold on a second. It's an artist rendering. Many of you are very familiar with runes and symbology, and so I just want to give you that so that you have it. And you can always come back and check it later. Thank you, Farmer. Go Buffs. We are now ranked. We're nationally ranked. I think we're number 23 right now. As of yesterday, I think we were. Okay. So this is what the state wants the jury and you, the worldwide audience, to believe that these sticks were just thrown on top of the girls to camouflage them. Many people who are familiar with symbology and or runes and or ancient lettering may see something else there. We looked at 2 tarot cards yesterday that were kindly sent to us by Zelda. One is, I think, the Hanging Man, and the other one is the Magician. And they are eerily similar in posing or posture to the way the girls' bodies were found. Yes, this was on both of their bodies. So just so that we have it here, I'll pull up again the artist renderings of the way the body was found, because none of this evidence is being released to the public. We can't see the crime scene photos. Even the attorneys who are in court every day, Andrea Burkhart, Lee, Bob Mata, and Lauren, who's not an attorney, but she is she's a journalist. Her channel is Hidden True Crime. They're not allowed to look at the evidence. In fact, Andrea Burkhart made a motion to be able to look at the evidence, that the public should be able to see it. And we're told, no, the motion was denied. Can you hang on for 1 second? I got to take this call. Okay. So if you take a look at this symbol or rune on the right, it's not exact. So let me show you this. Let me show you this. So you've got this and this. Compared to this. And you tell me. The largest branch here was about 7 feet long. This one here on the right of your screen. That's my cursor. It's not a fly. Don't kill it. None of his DNA is at the scene. You are Correct, Deanna. You're correct. In fact, the only evidence that they have connecting him to this crime so far that I've seen is the fact that they think that he may look like Bridge Guy. Here's the picture of Bridge Guy. This is Bridge Guy. They were shown a video of this guy taken with Libby's phone, where it sounds like someone is saying down the hill. It's so blurry that you can't see the lips move. And here is a picture of Abby's boyfriend's father, who's a known Odinist. His name is Brad Holder. Many people think that he looks more like Bridge Guy than Richard Allen. It's also important to point out that Richard Allen is 5'4". The state did not want to spend $10,000 to try and estimate the height of this person on the Bridge Guy. There's not even any evidence that Bridge Guy had anything to do with this crime, but Richard Allen is 5'4". He admitted to being at the bridge at a certain time, originally a couple of days after the crime, voluntarily. He went in or called in a tip, said that he was there between 1:30 and 3:30, but he was never interviewed, or he was arrested more than 5 years later. He was arrested in October of 2022, and the crimes happened on either February 13th or February 14th of 2017. All right. Let's get back to the papers. For those of you who didn't watch yesterday, the link is in the show notes for part 1 of this stream. And here's where we left off. Liedet concealed certain witness testimony and falsified other witness testimony in order to prevent Lieget's bogus timeline from being exposed to Judge Diener. Tony Liedet was the Carroll County sheriff at the time. Judge Diener was the original judge assigned to this case, who recused himself from this case when people started doxing him and his family, and he felt in fear, and he recused himself from this case. And now we have Judge Fran Gull, who has been very secretive about this case, and many people who are there and who have been following this case for far longer than I have been saying that Judge Gull is very state-oriented. At one point, when some crime scene photos were leaked by somebody who had access to them at the defense office, she threw Richard Allen's defense attorneys off the case, sua sponte, meaning on her own. And that was the only day the cameras were in the courtroom, was when she threw them off the case. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court of Indiana, and her decision was reversed, and they were allowed to come back and be his attorneys again. It's crazy. There we go. I'm not going to be able to read the chat while I'm reading to you, so just if you wouldn't mind saving your questions for later, that would be amazing. Beyond the shocking omissions concerning the pagan cult's links to the murders and the fact that Odinists were also watching Richard Allen, akin to foxes watching the hen house, and this was when he was in prison, remember, not jail, he was in prison. The evidence will show that Lieget's affidavit for search warrant is also filled with lies and other concealed information concerning witness testimony. This false and concealed information completely eviscerates the state's timeline. The evidence will show that Tony Liedet knew of the major problems that these witnesses' testimony created, and Liedet chose to solve his problem by concealing this information and even falsifying other information in order to bolster the state's bogus timeline. The evidence will show that Liedet concealed facts concerning descriptions that key witness Betsy Blair made directly to Liedet face-to-face in 2019 concerning 1, the person that she, Betsy Blair, observed on the bridge, and 2, a vehicle that she, Betsy Blair, observed at the CPS parking lot around 2:15 p.m. For Lieget's timeline to work and to place Richard Allen on the Monon High Bridge at 2:13, the time of the famous Down the Hill video, Liedet desperately needed Betsy Blair to describe a man on the bridge that looked like Richard Allen and furthermore, desperately needed Betsy Blair to describe a car that she observed parked at the CPS parking lot at approximately 2:15 p.m. as looking like Richard Allen's black Ford Focus. Suffice it to say, the evidence will show that Liedet concealed from Judge Diener that Betsy Blair described a man on the bridge that looked nothing like Richard Allen and described a car at the CPS lot that looked nothing like Richard Allen's car, both in color and design. The evidence will show that Betsy provided these timeline-defeating descriptions directly to Liedet face-to-face 2 times in 2019. Yet, Liedet failed to inform Judge Diener of these descriptions, as well as inform Diener of the fatal flaws that these missing descriptions created for the timeline. Okay. Betsy Blair has already testified, correct? Give me a second. And here, she testified on day 4 of testimony. Let's see, why can't I find it? But Betsy Blair is the witness who was walking loops around the trails. She said, after learning of the girl's disappearance, Blair spoke to police, this is what she testified to, who wanted her to help them create a sketch of the man she spotted near the bridge. She says that she saw the bridge guy, and she also saw Abby and Libby during one of her many loops. She said that the man had brown, poofy hair, and she described him as looking younger. She didn't recall him having facial hair. She told the jury she was roughly 50 feet away from bridge guy and claimed that she thought, due to his posture, that he was looking for someone. The judge previously ruled that the sketches of the suspect were not admissible in court. It's important to note that the eyewitnesses who took the stand, including Betsy Blair, none of them were asked by the prosecution, do you see the bridge guy in this courtroom today? And can you identify him? None of them were asked that. We see that in every trial. She was not asked, and neither was Sarah Carbaugh. These papers were originally filed in September of 2023. This is the motion that is currently pending before the court. They have revived this motion as of last Wednesday because their argument is the prosecution opened the door to this Odinism, Norse paganism theory because they had a witness testify that the branches were just placed randomly or thrown randomly on the girls to conceal them, and they say they're entitled to an alternative theory. So again, this is the original motion because it gives us more detail than the motion that we read yesterday that was just filed by the defense on Wednesday, in case anybody is confused. The evidence will also show that Liedet just flat out lied about what he claimed Sarah Carbaugh told him in 2017 concerning a man walking down the road near the murder scene. For Lieget's timeline to work, Liedet needed Sarah Carbaugh to describe a man walking down the road wearing a blue jacket who had blood covering his clothing. However, in 2017, Sarah did not say these things. This did not prevent Liedet from affirming under oath that Sarah Carbaugh did say those things. In fact, what Sarah Carbaugh actually told Liedet in 2017 was that she observed a man walking down the road wearing a tan coat whose clothes were muddy. Nowhere did Carbaugh claim in 2017 that the man she observed was wearing a blue coat. Nowhere did Carbaugh claim in 2017 that the man she observed was wearing bloody clothes. Nowhere. This truth about what Sarah Carbaugh actually told Liedet in 2017 blows up Lieget's timeline, which is the likely reason Lieget failed to include this information in his affidavit. Additional evidence will be presented in the body of this memorandum. The defense believes that the evidence strongly supports the contention that Lieget intentionally concealed evidence from Judge Diener and lied about other evidence to Judge Diener in his affidavit for search warrant. However, even if Lieget did not intentionally conceal evidence from the judge or did not intentionally place false information into the search warrant affidavit, at a minimum, Lieget behaved recklessly when he prepared the affidavit, omitting those facts from Judge Diener and providing false information in the affidavit. As stated in the motion accompanying his brief, the defense must show that Lieget either intentionally or recklessly omitted facts in the affidavit or provided false statements in the affidavit. Let's go to the chat for a second and let me just fast forward a little bit to the parts of the memorandum that are going to talk about the Odinism theory. Okay, the first thing that we're going to talk about is part one, which is a description of the crime scene. This can be triggering, so please, if you cannot handle ghoulish type descriptions, perhaps you want to sit this one out. The jury and the people in the gallery saw the crime scene photos and they said they were horrific. Horrific. Thank you, Tara, for becoming a new member. Welcome. Here we go. Part one, the crime scene. When members of a search party found the girls, in the late morning of February 14th of 2017, Abby and Libby had been missing for approximately 22 hours. Excuse me for 1 second. Don't people know that I'm on the air? I mean, really? Okay, here we go. When members of a search party found the girls in the late morning of February 14th of 2017, Abby and Libby had been missing for approximately 22 hours. The scene was ghoulish. Libby was found at the base of a tree with 4 tree branches of varying sizes intentionally placed in a very specific and arranged pattern on her naked body. Libby was positioned flat on her back, with her left arm stretched above her head, touching the base of a large tree. Libby's right hand was covered in blood. Libby's left hand was covered in blood. Blood spots and blood drippings were seen all over Libby's body from head to toe. Libby's right arm was placed along the side of her body. One large tree branch had been placed on her left shoulder. This branch was so long that it extended above Libby's head several feet and below her legs for several feet as well. 2 smaller branches formed a V where her legs joined her body, near her genitalia, with both sides of the V extending upward toward Libby's head, with one branch extending to the left of Libby's head and the other to the right of Libby's head. The last of the 4 branches extended across Libby's body on a line from her right shoulder to her left shoulder. This 4th tree branch also connected with the other 3 branches and was placed under both branches that formed the V. Libby's sliced neck was partially covered by this fourth branch. There appeared to be no blood sprayed or dripped onto the leaves or the tree near Libby's head and sliced neck. It appeared likely that Libby had been killed at a nearby tree and then dragged to her final resting place, where she was then positioned before having the tree limbs placed on her in a very specific pattern. The murderers treated Abby very differently. Abby was found just a few feet away from Libby. Her body was not placed parallel to Libby, but rather at an angle, with Abby's legs just a few feet from Libby's legs. However, both of their heads were found a few feet farther apart from each other. Significant differences existed between how Libby's body was found and how Abby's body was found. Abby was not found at the base of a tree. Abby was fully clothed. In fact, Abby was dressed in Libby's sweatshirt and jeans. No blood appeared on Abby's clothing, meaning that she was likely murdered while naked and then dressed by the murderers after she expired and after the blood had stopped spilling from her neck. Abby's hands were clean. No blood. Abby's feet were clean. No blood. Other than blood found around Abby's neck area where the murderers had inflicted the fatal wound, very little, if any, blood was found anywhere else on Abby's body or clothing. The juxtaposition of the spots and streaks of blood found all over Libby's body with the lack of blood on Abby's body / undergarments, overgarments is stark. The murderers appeared to have gone to great lengths to keep Abby's body and clothing from blood. Abby was found on her back like Libby. However, unlike Libby, Abby's elbows were bent with her right and left arms both placed on her chest. Abby's left hand and arm near the left side of her face, and her right hand and arm near the right side of her face. Also, Abby's left leg was straight while her right leg was bent at the knee. The murderers also placed her bent right leg under her left leg. Like Libby, those involved in the murder had placed tree branches in a very specific pattern on top of Abby. The pattern looks very similar to an asterisk consisting of 3 tree branches all joined in the middle. Footnote 17. This stick configuration is a spot-on resemblance for the rune called Hagal, Hagal. This rune is used to depict the word hail. Therefore, the combination of the Hagal rune found on Abby and the Ansuz, Ansuz rune found on the tree, when combined, would proclaim Hail Odin. This sentiment, Hail Odin, was one of the many Easter eggs Brad Holder left behind on his Facebook page on multiple posts. At least one of the tree branches appears to have been cleanly cut by some instrument, like an electric saw, rather than split or broken by hand, indicating that this was a preconceived plan. Above Abby's head were smaller sticks that had been placed over her hair, crudely mimicking horns or antlers. The amount of blood that would be perhaps expected at the crime scene, based upon the location of the injuries of both girls, was not visible in the crime scene photos. 18. The defense team speculates that because of the lack of blood visible in the crime scene photos, especially concerning Abby, that the murderers may have saved the blood to be used in future rituals. This is merely a theory, admittedly not supported by any facts currently in possession of the defense, but a theory that would certainly explain the lack of expected blood at the crime scene. The defense has provided the court with 12 crime scene and autopsy photographs, marked as exhibits 5 to 16 as confidential. These photographs support the descriptions provided in the previous paragraphs. In addition to the unusual way the girls were posed, including the stick formations placed on their bodies, another unusual marking was found on a nearby tree. A symbol that looked similar to the letter F appeared approximately 4 feet above the base of the tree. Footnote 19. The F resembles a rune called Ansuz, which stands for Odin. Again, when paired with the Hagal rune found on Abby, this combination would proclaim Hail Odin. This F symbol was the same F symbol found in many of Brad Holder's Facebook pages, which will be attached, including Holder's creepy self-drawn illustration in which a red F rune was found at the base of a tree where a man appeared to be sacrificed on a tree. The F was red in color, and later DNA testing showed that the F had been painted on the tree using Libby's blood as the so-called paint. Additional blood spatter was found at the base of the same tree. All the blood at the base of the tree appears to have been Libby's blood as well. The defense has also provided the court with Exhibit 17, DNA documentation supporting the fact that Libby's blood was the source of the F painted on the tree. Said exhibit is marked as confidential. The defense has also provided 2 photos of this F found on the nearby tree, here and after called the F tree, exhibits 18 and 19, marked as confidential. Defense is also providing a photo of the F tree from a wider angle for the court to have perspective as to where the F tree is located relative to the bodies. That confidential photo has been marked as Exhibit 20. Under Abby's left lower back, a shoe was found. This shoe is believed to be Libby's shoe. Under the shoe, a cell phone was found. The cell phone was later determined to be Libby's phone. This information was confirmed by the recent deposition testimony of Liedet, Lazenby, and Holman. According to recent depositions taken of Sheriff Liedet, the famous video of the person that many people call Bridge Guy was found on this phone. Additionally, allegedly found between the 2 girls buried under the leaves and dirt was a single bullet. The defense has provided 2 photos of the shoe and cell phone found under Abby's legs and marked them as Exhibits 21 and 22 and have been filed confidentially. Also, the defense has provided 3 photos of a bullet purportedly found in the ground between Abby and Libby and marked these photos as Exhibit 23, 24, and 25. It should be noted that as of the date of this memo, the defense has no photographs of the bullet allegedly found between the girls after it was removed from the ground. No photo or video, for example, shows the bullet as it was being pulled out of the ground. No photo or video of the bullet immediately after it was pulled from the ground. No video or photograph of all sides of the bullet immediately after it was pulled from the ground. No photographs of the bullet next to a measuring device to show its length. No photos that show what the bullet looked like once it was pulled out of the ground could provide proof that it is the same bullet that ended up in the evidence locker room. Footnote 20. On September 8th of 2023, the defense did receive photographs of the bullet at the forensics lab where it was tested. However, the defense still has not received photos of the bullets from the crime scene, of crime scene technicians pulling the bullet from the ground or placing it into an evidence bag, as is standard practice, especially in murder cases. Well, at least they didn't use solo cups at the scene. Shockingly, in his deposition, Sheriff Liedet admitted that he's also not seen any photographs of the purported bullet taken once the bullet was pulled from the ground. 21. Liedet deposition. In other words, the only photos that the defense has found in the discovery it has received are of the bullet still buried in the ground. At this time, the defense has no idea if A, photos of the bullet after it was removed from the ground even exist, or 2, the photos exist, but the state has not yet turned those important photographs over to the defense, or 3, the defense has missed those photos in the voluminous discovery. Either way, the defense has asked the prosecutor to please locate these photographs. I believe that there was a ballistic expert who testified something like for 7 hours, right? Any of you familiar with that testimony? Did they ever come up with these photographs showing the bullet being pulled out of the ground right there at the scene Anything such as like that? And I believe that the ballistics expert that has testified so far, because this was an unspent bullet that they allegedly matched to a gun found in Richard Allen's home, it was not a fired bullet. There's some controversy about the science that was used for this ballistics expert to prove that it absolutely came from Richard Allen's Sig Sauer. I think it's also been pointed out that it's the same ammunition that is used by law enforcement in the area. And I think it was also shown during the testimony of the ballistic expert that she had to fire the gun, fire Richard Allen's gun, and compared the fired bullet to the unspent bullet at the scene, and that she somehow came to the conclusion that it was absolutely ejected from his gun. It's going to be up to the jury to decide whether or not they believe that testimony. Nope, they never came up with any photos, right? A lot of things are missing in this case. A lot of things were lost. A lot of the original witness statements were lost, misplaced, dog ate my homework kind of stuff. Right, Cammie? That's what I'm saying. The state chose not to hire someone to estimate bridge guy's height, allegedly. Yep, it was going to cost them $10,000, and they didn't want to pay the money. What does that tell us? They'd rather make a case around Richard Allen, in my opinion. Richard Allen is 5'4". The original description of this man given by law enforcement to the public was 5'6" to 5'10". And I believe they said that, well, we didn't do it because it only would have given us, it would have been a 2-inch margin of error. Well, wouldn't that be better than the 4-inch margin of error that they gave the public initially between 5'6" and 5'10"? It's correct, Lindy. The way I understood it, they tested a fired casing to an unspent cartridge. Those are two different things. And the next section says, one man alone completed all these tasks in less than 1 hour and 17 minutes. That's what they want the jury and the world to believe. 22. Jerry Holman, who is the Michael Proctor of this investigation, he's the lead investigator for the Indiana State Police, who's been on the stand at least twice. Jerry Holman testified in his deposition that investigators estimated the time of death as occurring somewhere between 2:30 and 3:30 p.m. Holman deposition, page 17, line 6 to 21. I have questions. Here's the thing. The down the hill video was taken and was found on Libby's phone, and it was taken according to metadata. I have to go back through my notes here. Something like, somebody put it in the chat, 2:17 p.m. $2:17 p.m. Anybody know? They're estimating the time of death between 2:30 and 3:30. All of this is alleged to have happened the way that we just described the crime scene. 2:13. Thank you, Sherilyn. 2:13. Bridge guy video. 2:13 p.m. They're estimating the time of death between 2:30 and 3:30 p.m. Does that make sense to you? I mean, just like, let's use our common sense. Many of the law tubers and YouTubers that are in Delphi right now have walked this bridge. They've walked around the bridge. It's a far walk from where this bridge was to where the bodies were found. It was daylight in February. There were no leaves on the trees. It's a heavily wooded area, but there were no leaves on the trees. It has also been said, and I can't remember who said it. Maybe it was Ali who said that when they went to the bridge, Ali Mata and Bob Mata, that sound carries there. It's very loud. You can hear things that are happening from far away. And that's what the state wants the jury and you and I to believe. And a lot of this has been kept from the public. This is Karen Reed on steroids. Maybe. Okay. One man alone completed all these tasks in less than 1 hour and 17 minutes. Liggett says one thing publicly, but another thing privately to his law enforcement friends. Publicly, Liggett has claimed under oath that one single solitary person was responsible for abducting and murdering the girls, Richard Allen, footnote 23. Liggett deposition, page 67. Claiming publicly that Richard Allen acted alone would allow Liggett to continue proclaiming that the murders were not the result of a coordinated abduction and subsequent ritualistic sacrifice at the hands of a pagan religious cult. No, if Liggett continues trying to convince everyone publicly that one man and one man alone, Richard Allen, performed all the tasks, then Liggett must convince others, including the public, to ignore the voluminous mountain of evidence that supports the coordinated efforts of multiple Odinites. However, you will learn later in this memorandum that Liggett's claim that one man acting alone, and certainly not an organized band of cultists, murdered those girls is actually not something that he, Liggett, believes privately based upon one-on-one conversations with other law enforcement. Still, to be fair, Liggett's public proclamation under oath Still, to be fair to Liggett's public proclamation under oath, let's test Liggett's claim that one man, Richard Allen, acted alone by reviewing all the tasks that this 5'4" man would have had to accomplish in order to pull off the abduction, ritualistic murder, and then staged crime scene as it was found on February 14th, 2017. One, this one man would have had to been solely responsible for marching Abby and Libby down a steep hill. 2, this one man then would have had to march both girls through the woods for some distance. 3, at some point in time, this single solitary man would have had to cross a cold river whose depth was nearly 3.5 feet. Footnote 24. Find attached Exhibit 26, which is the U.S. Geological Survey depth rating of Deer Creek near Delphi, Indiana, taken from a measuring station near the crime scene on February 13th, 2017 at 2:15 p.m. This document can be found on the following link. Deer Creek. Is Deer Creek still a music venue? The Grateful Dead played there quite a bit back in the day. I never made it there, but I did follow the Grateful Dead around. At this depth, if the water were only 2 feet higher, Richard's whole body would have been completely immersed from head to toe. 4, with the cold river water rising well above his waist, this man acting alone has to worry about himself crossing the rushing river while also trying to corral 2 girls, keeping them from running or screaming, knowing that houses were not far away. 5, this man on his own would have had to then march the girls up to the site of the murders while all 3, because of the depth of the water, were wearing undergarments, pants, shirts, jackets, socks, and shoes that were drenched with water from the river crossing. 6, once he and the girls arrived at the murder scene, this single solitary person then somehow would have had to subdue either Abby or Libby in rope or some other restraining device in order to have the ability to kill the unsubdued child without fear that the other child would run away or scream. 7, because of the lack of blood on the girl's clothing, each child would have had to have been completely disrobed before the single solitary man sliced his first victim's neck, so the man acting alone either asked each child to disrobe or he assisted in the disrobing. 8, Trooper Jerry Holman of the Unified Command has confirmed that both girls were naked at one point in time, as Liberty was found at the crime scene completely naked, while evidence showed that Abby at one point in time had her clothes off. Footnote 25. Holman deposition. 9, once the girls were disrobed and naked in the middle of the forest in the middle of the day in February, and once he had subdued one of the 2 girls to prevent her from running away, the man acting alone could finally kill the girls. 10, This man acting alone would have had to pull the ceremonial knife, or whatever sharp instrument was used, and inflict fatal injuries to the neck of the first child. It is unknown which child perished first. While the second child watched, hopefully without screaming or becoming so hysterical that said child was uncontrollable. The man acting alone would then walk over to the second child, who was somehow subdued, and inflict the same fatal injuries to her neck. The autopsy notes taken by Liedet revealed that the pathologist stated that because of the particular vein that was severed, Abby suffered a slow death. Footnote 26. Find attached and marked as Exhibit 27, Lieget's autopsy notes. The defense has not yet deposed the pathologist to determine the phrase slow death means in terms of timing. What the phrase slow death means in terms of timing, whether it was 5 minutes, 25 minutes, or 55 minutes or more. This is number 13, to give Liedet as much additional time needed to sell this preposterous story that one man committed all these tasks in a short period of time, we will presume that this one man, acting alone, took Abby's life first and Libby's second, so that he, the lone killer, could efficiently handle all of the other tasks necessary while Abby suffered her, quote, slow death. 14. Additionally, even after Abby finally would have died, the man acting alone would have had to then wait enough time so that the blood escaping from Abby's neck would stop flowing, as there was little to no blood found on any of the clothing Abby was wearing other than around the neck area, both undergarments and outer garments, meaning that the single solitary man likely clothed Abby's dead body after the flow of blood ceased. Once this man acting alone inflicted injuries to Abby's neck as she was dying a slow death, he would have left Abby on the ground somewhere away from where she was ultimately laid to rest, as there was little blood at the scene where she was laid to rest and posed, and where the man acting alone placed sticks on her body. 16. While waiting for Abby to die her slow death, the man acting alone would then have used a ceremonial knife or whatever sharp object he used to inflict Libby's fatal injuries at the base of the F tree where Libby's blood was found. 17. While 1, waiting for Abby to die her slow death, and 2, while waiting for the blood to stop escaping from Abby's fatal injuries, this man acting alone would then grab Libby's body from the F tree where she was probably killed, dragging her to the final resting place at the base of the tree where she was found. 18. While waiting for 1, Abby to die her slow death, and then 2, waiting for the blood to stop draining from Abby's neck, this man acting alone then would have had to pose and position Libby's dead body in the manner in which her dead body was found at the scene. 19. While waiting for 1, Abby to die her slow death, and 2, then waiting for the blood to stop draining from Abby's neck, this man acting alone then would select a variety of tree branches and sticks with the ultimate purpose of placing them on Libby's dead body. 20. After selecting the branches and sticks, this man acting alone would then gather those sticks and branches. 21. After gathering the selected branches and sticks, the man acting alone would have to carefully arrange the sticks in the pattern found at the crime scene. A, this man acting alone would have to take the largest and longest of the branches and use his dexterity to lift that large branch over Libby's left shoulder next to her head. I think it came out in testimony that that largest branch was over 7 feet long. B, next, the man acting alone would have had to have taken a smaller stick and placed it under Libby's neck on a straight line from Libby's right shoulder to her left shoulder, but over the previously laid out large branch that the man acting alone had placed over Libby's left shoulder, described in 14A. C, next, the man would have to grab one of the longer sticks and place it on Libby's right thigh near her genitalia. This stick would then be placed alongside the right side of Libby toward her head, but over the shorter stick discussed in 14C above. This stick, starting near Libby's genitalia, would form the right half of the V along with the stick discussed in 14D. D. Next, in order to form what can be described as a V, the man acting alone would take another stick, place it on Libby's left thigh near her genitals, and connect it with the stick described in 14C to form the base of the V. Then this man would run that stick essentially along the left side of Libby's body over the large tree branch that is mentioned in 14a. This stick placed on Libby's left thigh would also connect with, and in fact may even be attached to, as the photo makes it hard to tell, the stick described in 14b. 22. At some point in time, once the blood draining from Abby's neck had stopped, this man acting alone would then have to gather the discarded clothing from both girls. 23. This man would then have to have had to redress Abby's dead body, starting with the undergarments Abby was wearing, without leaving any blood, his, Abby's, or Libby's, on the undergarments, except around the neck area where Abby had been mortally wounded. 24. This man acting alone would have to use his dexterity to lift Abby's dead body in order to maneuver the first bra onto Abby's dead body. 27. Abby was wearing two bras. The first bra on top of Abby's skin, but under the second bra was a traditional looking black bra. 25. This man acting alone would then have to use his dexterity to lift Abby's body in order to maneuver the first bra under her neck, under her back. 26. This man acting alone then would have to use his dexterity to secure this black bra onto Abby. 27. This man acting alone would then have to locate the second bra that Abby was wearing. 28. The second bra was found on top of the black bra and under a pink shirt. This second bra was what the defense would call a gray sports bra. 28. This man acting alone would then have had to use his dexterity to lift Abby's dead body in order to maneuver the second bra onto Abby's dead body. 29. This man acting alone would then use his dexterity to secure a second woman's bra onto Abby. 30. Once both bras were secured onto Abby's dead body, this man acting alone would have had to locate the pink shirt that Abby was wearing underneath the sweatshirt. 31. Once the pink shirt was located, the man acting alone would likely have positioned Abby's arms above her head to make it easier to place the pink shirt onto Abby's dead body. 32. Once Abby's arms were positioned above her head, then the man acting alone would have had to place the opening at the bottom of the pink shirt just above Abby's outstretched arms. 33. Once the bottom opening of the pink shirt was positioned just above Abby's outstretched arms, the man acting alone would have to use his dexterity by lifting Abby's left arm and placing it into the pink shirt. 34. Once the man acting alone maneuvered Abby's left hand and left arm through the bottom of the pink shirt, he would have had to use his dexterity to move Abby's left hand and left arm toward the left armhole of the pink shirt. 35. Once the man acting alone has used his dexterity to maneuver Abby's left hand and left arm toward the left armhole in the pink shirt, he would have had to use his dexterity to pull the left arm through the left armhole on the pink shirt. 36. Once the left arm was successfully pulled through the left armhole of the pink shirt, the man acting alone would have used his dexterity by picking up Abby's right arm and placing it in the bottom entry hole of the pink shirt. 37. Once the man acting alone had used his dexterity to maneuver Abby's right hand and right arm toward the right armhole in the pink shirt, he would have had to use his dexterity to pull the right arm through the right armhole on the pink shirt. Once the man acting alone had successfully maneuvered Abby's right arm and left arms through the armholes, then he would have to use his dexterity by using one hand to lift the upper portions of Abby's body while using the other hand to pull the pink shirt toward Abby's midsection until the shirt was properly dressed on Abby. 39. Additionally, the man acting alone while using his one hand to pull the pink shirt toward Abby's midsection would have had to lift Abby's body high enough off the ground to avoid getting any dirt on the pink shirt, as the photographs show that the pink shirt was clean. 40. It is likely that once the murderer redressed Abby in her pink shirt, that the pink shirt never touched the damp, dirty ground, as there was no dirt on that shirt whatsoever, unlike the wet dirt found on Libby's backside and the wet dirt also found on the sweatshirt Abby was ultimately dressed in. 41. This would mean that once the man redressed Abby in the pink shirt, that he would have likely held up the upper portion of Abby's body with one hand while grabbing the sweatshirt with the other before placing the sweatshirt on Abby. 42. In order to put the sweatshirt on Abby, once he was able to locate Libby's sweatshirt, Then this man acted alone, likely positioned at least one of Abby's arms above her head so as to make it easier for this man to put Libby's sweatshirt onto Abby's body. 43. Once he positioned Abby's arms above her head, this man acting alone then would have to take the opening of the sweatshirt near the outstretched arm or arms of Abby. 44. See, they're going into painstaking detail to show how, in the opinion of the defense, all of these steps, and I'm going to, rather than read them all to you, I'm going to scroll through them slowly. So if you want to come back later and read through them all, they're going through painstaking detail to show each step that would have been required if the state's theory is correct, that one man, Richard Allen, committed these crimes, these horrific, gruesome crimes, all of the things that he would have had to do in 1 hour and 17 minutes. Some of this stuff has already come out in court with regard to the blood on the clothing, where the clothing was found, what the girls were wearing, the time they were found. And that is a lot of steps here. I'm going to just repeat for you that the DNA expert who testified yesterday testified they found no DNA from Richard Allen at the scene. They also found no fingerprints on that unspent shell casing or bullet. Paragraph number 66 says, another possible explanation as to how Abby had no visible blood on her body or clothes other than near the site of the wound is that the man acting alone had hanged Abby on a tree, stringing her up by her feet. Footnote 29. In one crime scene photo, a yellow rope can be viewed. This photo is attached and marked as Exhibit 28, filed as confidential. This method, consistent with pagan sacrificial rituals found on Brad Holder's Facebook page, would allow the blood to drip out of Abby's neck more quickly and would also prevent the blood from desecrating Abby's body, especially if the man acting alone was able to hold Abby's arms away from her body as the blood spilled out of her neck. Then it goes on to say, at 68, now, because at least one of the branches appeared to have a clean-cut end, this man acting alone either A, brought out his saw, a saw that he had either stashed at the murder scene ahead of time or had carried on his person as he walked on the bridge, and then used that saw to cleanly cut the end of at least one of the branches, or B, located the branch with the clean-cut end that he, the man acting alone, had either, 1, stashed ahead of time at the murder site, or 2, that he had carried with him on his person while walking the high bridge before abducting the girls, or 3, the man acting alone just so happened to have found a branch with a clean-cut end on the ground in the woods. Footnote 30. Later in this brief, you will see a Facebook post in which, a few weeks before the murders, a man that looks like Patrick Westfall is using an electric saw to cut a tree branch. Brad Holder then leaves a comment that says, quote, cutting runes with 4 exclamation points, end quote. I'll scroll through this slowly in case you want to read it in more painstaking detail. Paragraph 81 says, once at the tree where Libby had been slayed, the man acting alone would have taken his finger, dripping with blood, or the tool dripping with blood, and would have painted a line, maybe a foot, long straight down the tree trunk, about 4 feet above the ground. Footnote 31. Law enforcement officer Greg Ferenczi sent Tony Liggett a video of a pagan ritual videotaped by Brad Holder in which someone that looks like Patrick Westfall is marking a tree with his hands or fingers. Oops. Oops. I think this is a good time to tell you what happened to Greg Ferenczi. Greg Ferenczi was killed. Greg Ferenczi was an FBI agent who was assigned to this case, who initially followed the theory that there was something involving Odinism or pagan ritual involved in the killings of Libby and Abby. Greg Ferenczi was a Terre Haute police detective who was also an FBI task force officer. Was killed by a man named Shane Meehan. On July 7th of 2021. Officer Greg Ferenczi was 53 and the father of 18-year-old twins when he was killed on July 7th, 2021 in Terre Haute. Authorities allege that Meehan threw a Molotov cocktail at an FBI office and then shot the officer as he emerged from the building. Ferenczi and an FBI agent both fired on Meehan, wounding him in the ambush, authorities said. Ferenczi was a 30-year Terre Haute Police Department veteran, and he was also a federal task force agent. This guy, Meehan, who shot him, I think he was also an FBI, like a former FBI agent or something. Let me see. Here's the original article. Police officer fatally shot in ambush near federal building. A Western Indiana police officer was fatally shot Wednesday when he was ambushed near FBI offices in Terre Haute, according to federal officials. Shooting of Ferenczi occurred outside a federal office building behind the Vigo County Courthouse, according to authorities. This was before the name of the suspect was released. So many people that were connected to this case have wound up dead that it's eerie and it's frightening. And it's things that make you go, huh? He was a federal corrections officer, Meehan. Stays on the case says people have never had any reason to question Law enforcement who look outside the norm for information have a hard time believing what might be odd, but the proof makes it believable. I mean, when I read this, I was like, could have some legs, right? And what even gives it more vibes, like this theory could have some weight, is that the FBI originally followed this theory till they were kicked off the case. Um, yeah, Kate says this case really should have been televised, but transparency means nothing these days. Nope, it sure doesn't. These are topics that YouTube doesn't like us to talk about. But this is a case I think that needs a lot more attention and a lot more eyes on it. So the reason I'm able to bring this to you is because I have an amazing sponsor. My sponsor is Aura, and know that recently there was a huge hack and your social security number and mine were released to the dark web. And because I use Aura, who's my sponsor, I was able to take care of it because Aura takes care of that for you and lets you know and tells you what to do in cases such as that. Let's listen to a quick word from our sponsor because that is why we're able to bring you the tough topics on this channel. You can get a free 2-week trial if you use my code that is linked in the video description below. I'm going to just speed it up a little bit. And we'll get back to the document. Today's video is sponsored by Aura. And it's a really important time to be talking about them because hackers may have stolen the social security numbers of every American. Over 2.9 billion records were stolen from national public data, which offers personal information to employers, private investigators, staffing agencies, and others doing background checks. These stolen records include a person's full name, address, date of birth, social security number, and phone number, along with alternate names and birth date. And members of this hacker group have reportedly released this information on the dark web for free. I don't know if you've ever had your identity stolen, but I've had clients who've had their identity stolen. And not only is it a major hassle, but oftentimes before you find out, it's too late. The damage can take years to undo, and it's a hassle that you definitely do not want to deal with. So if you haven't been taking precautions before with your personal information online, this should be a huge wake-up call. You've never been more vulnerable online than you are right now. But I'm not too worried about it because I use Aura. Aura alerts me if they find my phone number, my email, my social security number, or any other personal information on the dark web. They're going to let me know fast if anyone tries to use this information to access my credit or bank accounts. They give me up to $5 million in identity theft insurance should the worst case scenario happen. They also provide a bunch of other features to keep you safe online, all inside one app. And you can go to my link at www.aura.com/MelanieLittle to try it for free for 14 days. That'll be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal information or data has been exposed. I highly recommend you do this right now because not only is national public data not going to do anything to help you, they probably aren't even going to face any repercussions for this breach. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches. And if you don't want to either, you want to go to my link, www.aura.com/MelanieLittle to try 2 weeks for free. You can thank me later. You can thank me later. Oh, that's so funny. Right after I played that, my own suggestion came up of my own video. That's hilarious. Okay, let's get into the evidence that connects the Odinites to the murder as set forth in this original Frank's motion all the way back in September of 2023, that has been renewed last Wednesday based on testimony by the state. Go to the chat for a second. Tara Ashby, thanks for becoming a new member. I can't go off topic. Thanks for your off topic comments. I'll look for them later, but got to run a tight ship today. I'm on a schedule and can't really go off topic other than to tell you, yes, I did read the Vanity Fair article on Karen Reed, not the whole entire thing because I was prepping for this show. These shows take a lot of work, you guys. So I can't really go off topic. I can't look for any emails right now. I can't look for any other things that you may have sent me, but we're just going to keep reading through this document and see why Perhaps we think or don't think that any of this information should come in front of the jury while they're determining whether or not Richard Allen should, um, you know, go to jail for the rest of his life. Prison. He's already been in prison for most of his incarceration, not jail, held in solitary. We went over that yesterday. They're going to start talking about his confessions today. We talked about the conditions under which he was held in prison leading up to these confessions and whether or not we think, or the jury will think, that these confessions were genuine or coerced or threatened out of him. It's going to be really interesting. Okay, here we go. Part 2, the evidence that connects Odinites to the murders. Footnote 38. Marked as Exhibit 29, defense has provided an infographic highlighting parties discussed in this section. For Rick's defense team, it has been hard to gain a grasp. Okay, what is Odinism? Sorry, I forgot that. What is Odinism? For Rick's defense team, it has been hard to gain a grasp on exactly how to define Odinism. A March 15th, 1998 article found in the winter issue of the Southern Poverty Law Center's, herein SPLCA, Intelligent Report, identified as the nation's preeminent periodical monitoring the radical rights in the U.S., said this about Odinism in 1998. A neo-pagan religion drawing on images of fiercely proud, boar-hunting Norsemen and their white-skinned Aryan womenfolk is increasingly taking root among skinheads, neo-Nazis, and other white supremacist groups across the nation. Asatru leaders have opened prison ministries in at least 5 states recently, and that many jailed followers are heavily white supremacist. A leading proselytizer, imprisoned terrorist David Lane, has been writing prolifically and influencing many to adopt his racist interpretations. Bob Matthews, the late founder of the Order, of which Lane was a member, adopted a series of related beliefs. A Denver skinhead who confessed to the November murder of a man because he was Black, bears an Asatru tattoo. Some key Asatru leaders have known neo-Nazi or anti-Semitic backgrounds. Suddenly, says Phil Rodriguez, a gang investigator with the Arizona State Prison System, Asatrus become the new big fad. Asatru, an Icelandic word meaning belief in the Aesir or gods, has been officially recognized as a religion in Iceland since 1972. Further down in the article, the SPLC states the following. Odinism, which is closely related to Asatru, was much favored in Nazi Germany. Its Nordic Teutonic mythology was a bedrock belief for the key Third Reich leaders, and it was an integral part of the initiation rites and cosmology of the elite Schutzstaffel, SS, which supervised Adolf Hitler's network of death camps. Decades later, Odinism also influenced George Lincoln Rockwell's American Nazi Party. Those of you who have been following me for a long time, do you remember Schutzstaffel, SS, from the Maya trial, when they claimed that one of the jurors wrote Sally Smith's name in a jury note with the Schutzstaffel symbology? Wild. In addition to the white supremacy component that exists with Odinism, there seems to be an additional dark, demonic component to Odinism, at least if articles concerning Odinist human sacrifice and imagery found on the internet, coupled with imagery and language found on Brad Holder's Facebook page, are to be considered. As an example, the defense has attached Exhibits 30 to 34. Exhibits 30 and 31 were found on the internet. Exhibits 32, 33, and 34 are different versions of the same image that Brad Holder posted on his Facebook page. As you can see, law enforcement wrote the words, "Painting by Brad Holder, Odin hanging from world tree," on Exhibit 34. This appears to be something that law enforcement would have used in a PowerPoint presentation. Additionally, Kevin Murphy, who was a state trooper that investigated the Odinist angle, said this about Odinism. It seemed to me to border on almost a satanic type of worshiping, sacrificing, but I couldn't really wrap my brain around it. Exhibit 30 is an image from a website on Odinism of a man hanging upside down from a tree who has been sliced in the neck with blood dripping to the ground. This man's arms are posed similarly to Abby's at the crime scene. This man's legs are also posed similarly to Abby's at the crime scene. His left leg is straight and his right leg is bent at the knee. The only difference is that the man's right leg is placed over the left leg, while Abby's right leg was posed under her left leg. Exhibit 31 is an image from a website on Odinism of a man wearing antlers similar to the crude way in which sticks were formed on Abby's head. Exhibit 31 also resembles the crime scene in that the man's left leg is straight while his right leg is bent at the knee and placed under his left leg, just like Abby was found. Footnote 40. The man's hands are not similar to the way Abby had been posed. Both exhibits 30 and 31 were found on the internet by Ryan Boucher during his internet research. 41. See Boucher affidavit. The defense included exhibits 32 and 33 in the event that the court might think something like, well, just because those images are available on the internet concerning Odinism has nothing to do with Brad Holder. Exhibits 32 and 33 are images that the defense located in the state's discovery. Both exhibits are the same image, with exhibit 33 being a close-up version. The image itself is a painting produced by the hands of Brad Holder. As the court can see, Brad Holder painted what the defense would call a very creepy serial killer-looking image of a naked man hanging from a tree. Holder's painting is similar in appearance to exhibits 30 and 31. Also, in Holder's self-made painting, you can see that just like Abby, the hanging man's right leg is bent at the knee, angled toward the man's straight left leg. Again, an overly inquisitive man down in Georgia, Ryan Boucher, began piecing all of this together without even having the benefit of the crime scene photographs. Yet the unified command, with the benefit of the crime scene photographs, apparently either incompetently or unintentionally failed to piece together these images, which would have caused any curious investigator to continue pursuing Brad Holder as a suspect. Ryan Boucher's curiosity led him to continue his research into runes and Odinism. Boucher's research led to an article that is a primer for Odinist sacrifice. The defense has attached this article by Daniel Bray entitled Sacrifice and Sacrificial Ideology in Old Norse Religion. Footnote 42. Article by Daniel Bray. Within Bray's article, he discusses the history of human sacrifice to Odin that exists in the pagan Norse religions. Next section is entitled Unified Command claims that Odinism was ruled out early because of the findings of a Purdue professor. However, Unified Command now claims that it can't remember the name of the Purdue professor. Early in this investigation, one of the investigators viewing the crime scene thought that it might be the work of Odinists practicing Odinism. Footnote 43. Holman deposition. So all these footnotes all the way to 51 are all referring to Jerry Holman's deposition, the lead investigator from Indiana State Police. Unified Command's Jerry Holman has forgotten which investigator it was. Early in the investigation, based upon the thought that Odinism may explain how the bodies were found and how the sticks were arranged on top of the girls, Unified Command sought out an expert. The expert was being sought in order to consider whether the crime scene was indicative of Odinism or some other cult. According to Holman, Sergeant Steve Buckley of the Indiana State Police was in charge of locating the expert. Allegedly, the expert that Sergeant Buckley found was from Purdue. According to Holman, Holman doesn't know the Purdue professor's background, but he studies that Nordic culture that Odinism is. Holman admitted that he has never talked to this Purdue professor. Holman stated that Sergeant Buckley knew the Purdue professor's background, and furthermore, that Sergeant Steve Buckley was in communication with them. According to Holman, the professor was out of the country at the time, and we did not release the photos, but we released a sketch of the sticks, how they were laid, and some other information. Having reviewed everything, the professor concluded that it was not Odinism or any type of cult worshiping or any type of group that would have conducted the crime. However, Jerry Holman told a different story to Trooper Roland Purdy concerning the conclusions of the Purdue professor. Trooper Purdy began assisting with the investigation in March of 2017. However, the first time that Purdy even heard the word Odin or Odinite was at least May or June of 2017. And this, every footnote from 53 to 61 is referring to the Purdy deposition. It's also important to note that the first time that Trooper Purdy heard the word Odin or Odinite wasn't even through Unified Command or any other law enforcement officer, but rather through Becky Patty, who is Libby German's grandmother. Becky Patty, while talking to Trooper Purdy, informed Purdy that Abby Williams had dated Holder's older son, Logan, and that Logan's dad was an Odinist named Brad Holder. This information interested Purdy, who then talked to Holman, and Holman told Purdy that they had already run the stick formations and Odin angle through a Purdue professor. Holman told Purdy that the results from the Purdue professor were kind of inconclusive. Purdy also believes he was provided a copy of what Purdue University had provided them. Upon reviewing that Purdue report, according to Purdy, the Odinite angle was not dead. In other words, Holman did not tell Purdy that the report did not claim that the Purdue conclusions were that, quote, it was not Odinism or any type of cult worshiping or any type of a group that would have conducted the crime. Holman has told one story to Purdy and yet another story under oath in a deposition as to what the Purdue professor's conclusions were concerning Odinism involvement in the murders. The difference between concluding that Odinists and cults did not commit the murders versus that the evidence is conclusive as to whether Odinists were involved in the murders is significant. In the first instance, such a conclusion could theoretically explain why law enforcement stopped pursuing the Odinite angle. In the second instance, law enforcement would presumably continue to pursue the Odinite/cult angle based on the stick formations, girls' body positionings, and the F painted in Libby's blood on the tree, as well as other strong evidence supporting an orchestrated abduction and ritualistic murdering of the girls. 62. This evidence will be discussed later, but primarily involves social media posts on Brad Holder's Facebook page and witness statements found on a 12-page report that the defense has dubbed the Odin Report. As stated earlier, both Lazenby and Liedet privately believed more than one person were involved based on how much work was needed to leave the crime scene the way it was found. However, if the Purdue report concluded that a band of Odinites or cultists were not involved, then arguably it could be the work of one man. It is very telling that Trooper Purdy had been working as an investigator on the case for at least 2 months before ever hearing the word Odin or Odinite. And that was from March to May of 2017. This fact is evidence that the Odinite angle was abandoned before Purdy became involved in the investigation in March of 2017. This point can't be emphasized enough. The Odinite angle was abandoned by March of 2017, only a few weeks after the girls were murdered. The reason for this abandonment? A Purdue professor had reached a conclusion concerning Odinism and the crime scene. Of course, Holman tells one thing under oath about that conclusion, Odinism and cults were not involved in the murders. And another thing to Purdy, the results were inconclusive. A report may or may not exist. That does not rule out Odinism. So remember, the jury's hearing nothing about this. The court has ruled, Judge Gull has ruled, none of this information is coming in yet, if ever. And tell me if you think that this is stuff that the jury should hear about. The best thing to do to figure out which version of Holman's story to believe, if either, is to go straight to the source, the Purdue professor, and or to read the report that the Purdue professor prepared. Problem is that as of the filing of this document, the defense has been told that Unified Command cannot identify the professor and therefore can't locate the professor, and in the end might not ever be able to locate the professor or identify this mystery professor. 63. Prosecutor Nick McClelland informed the defense of this development in a September 6, 2023 email. Yeah, somebody's like, is the professor dead too? Additionally, the prosecution has not provided the defense with any Purdue report. Presumably, if the state of Indiana had such a report in its possession, then the identity of the mystery professor would be revealed. The only conclusion is the Purdue report is missing, just as the author of the report is also missing. It is unknown if Detective Holman is currently searching for the mystery professor. If so, he will probably never be found because of the incompetence surrounding this investigation and the complete inability to conduct a comprehensive review of all the facts and circumstances pointing to the involvement of multiple actors in this crime. To summarize, the crime scene is chock full of signs of cult involvement. At least one law enforcement officer believed that the cult involved maybe Odinites. Therefore, very early on in the investigation, Unified Command claims to have found an expert from Purdue. This expert from Purdue, according to sworn testimony of Jerry Holman, dismisses Odinism and cultism as being involved. The investigators move on from Odinism to the degree that when Trooper Purdy got involved in the investigation in March of 2017, Purdy never even hears the word Odinism or Odinite uttered by anyone in Unified Command. Rather, Purdy hears Odinism for the first time in May or June from a fact witness, Becky Patty. Now, this mystery professor can't be found. 2 young girls were brutally murdered, and an innocent man sits in Westville being mentally abused by Odinite guards, and Detective Holman can't even identify the Purdue professor that caused the abandonment of the likely source of the murders. It's very difficult to put into words the level of incompetence, or worse, the level of intentionality on display. It would be utterly laughable if the consequences of this dereliction of duty didn't involve life and death. The life of Richard Allen and the deaths of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. These are the facts that greatly undermine the credibility of the entire investigation and are an embarrassment to the greater law enforcement community. As stated previously, when determining whether a Franks hearing should be granted, the court will be determining whether the actions of Tony Liedet, as alleged by the defense, were intentional or reckless. Surely a missing Purdue professor and missing report would qualify as either intentional or extremely reckless conduct. Luckily for Richard Allen, Detective Murphy was thorough and organized enough to document in great detail his findings on the Odin angle of the investigation. Yay, Detective Murphy. Enter the Odin report. It seems only prudent that the court would review this report in its entirety before reading the remainder of this memorandum. Before we get to that, let's go to the chat for a moment. One of these days, I'm going to figure out how to use StreamYard, and it's going to be so great. You'll see. Nikki Castillo says, I don't understand how they cannot allow evidence in that is clearly relevant. I've seen it a lot lately and I just don't get it. Well, judges have a lot of discretion. A lot of discretion on what's admissible, what's not. Graphic Nuts says that info is probably all over campus. Ask anyone there, they probably know. If it's true. If it's true, I mean, nothing surprises me anymore. How could they not remember the name of the Purdue professor that they spoke with? I mean, that's just, it's mind-numbing, right? Kate says, I think every jury deserves to hear all hypotheses of a crime. They're supposed to figure it out. They're not allowed to use third-party culprit. Let me show you. Let me see where the order is. So the defense has asked the court to allow the defense to introduce evidence with regard to third-party culpability. Or actually, it was the state. The state filed a motion in limine in April of 2024, seeking to limit various forms of evidence in the case. So let's go to that for a second, so you can see what I'm talking about, because we are document-based here. This was filed in August. Defendant's supplemental submission regarding the state's motion in limine. On April 29th of 2024, the state of Indiana filed a motion in limine, or we call it motions in lemonade because the closed captions said that once, and so that's what we call it. Seeking to limit various forms of evidence in this case. They call it a cause. I'm just going to say case for purposes of clarity and ease. Specifically, paragraph 7 of said motion sought limitations on defendant's ability to introduce evidence of third-party culpability regarding the following individuals and/or subject matter: Odinism, cult or ritualistic killing, Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Johnny Messer, Elvis Fields, Ned Smith, Rod Abrams, Kagan Klein, Jerry Klein, and Ron Logan. The state's motion in limine sought to further restrict defendant's Sixth Amendment rights to present his defense by way of limiting investigative records generated by former police officer Todd Click and geofencing records generated by law enforcement investigators. On or about August 1st of 2024, the parties appeared in the Carroll Circuit Court, at which time both sides introduced evidence in favor of their positions regarding third-party culpability. The court took the issues surrounding the third-party culpability evidence under advisement. As of the date of this motion, no order has been issued in this regard. The defense requests that the court take judicial notice of the record of proceedings held on November 22nd, 2022, and attached hereto is Exhibit A. One of the primary issues addressed at the November 22nd, 2022 hearing was the state's request to maintain confidentiality of the probable cause affidavit, charging information, and other investigative records. At different times during the hearing, the state of Indiana, by prosecutor Nicholas McClelland, spoke the following words as it relates to the potential for third-party culpability. Quote, "This is still a very ongoing investigation. Our goal is to find anyone else who is involved in this heinous crime. That is the public interest, to find anybody else involved and get justice for Abby and Libby. We have a good reason to believe that Richard Allen is not the only person involved in this case, that there may be other actors involved, and that's why we left the tip line open. That's why we left the tip email open. The question becomes, at least in the state's mind, is it more important to release the details of the investigation to the public or more important to keep those confidential in order for the investigation to continue and find anyone else that's responsible. It puts the investigation in the best possible position to determine if anyone else was involved. It is in the best interest of the public that the investigation find anyone else involved. In addition to the prosecutor's comments, the state introduced Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2 attached in an effort to seek an order sealing the records. The first exhibit was a letter from Indiana State Police Detective Jerry Holman, and the second exhibit was a letter from Carroll County Prosecutor's Office, Carroll County Prosecutor's Office Investigator Stephen Mullen. 7, in pertinent part, Detective Holman's letter sought the sealing of the records for many reasons, one being that the investigation is ongoing and fluid. 8, the exhibit created by Investigator Mullen cited that the matter was still being actively investigated. Investigator Mullen went on to state that law enforcement was continuing to search and seek facts and information relating to Richard Allen and other potential suspects. In this context, Investigator Mullen was concerned that the integrity of the investigation would be jeopardized if the content of the investigative documents was released to the public. Richard Allen had been arrested and jailed at the time of the November 22nd, 2022 hearing, yet the state acknowledged their pursuit of other suspects associated with these crimes. The state's own admissions are evidence of the existence of third-party culpability in this case. And Defendant Allen requests that this court take judicial notice of the November 22nd, 2022 proceedings, exhibits entered during said proceeding, and ultimately deny the state's request to limit third-party evidence pursuant to paragraph 7 of the state's motion in limine. And this was filed by Brad Rosie, August 13th of 2024, so just pre-trial. Whoever says, I bet this professor never existed. Yep, doesn't fit their story, said Christy. Kiki says, all this should be allowed, in my opinion. Light the Way says, wherever power is gained, corruption exists. Kim Robinson. Richard Allen put himself there that day between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m. Mentioned seeing 3 girls in a group looking at fish in the creek at the bridge. Marin, isn't that a reason to appeal? Because Richard Allen must have the right to present other possible suspects and scenarios, doesn't he? Again, judges have wide discretion. And so, let me see if I can pull up the judge's order. This was August 13th. Talk amongst yourselves for a second. This was dated August 13th. So much stuff. Okay. I'm going to read the order to you. It's only 2 pages, so here it is. This is an order on the motion in Lemonade regarding introducing this third party and such stuff into evidence. And this was just decided on September 3rd. The court, having had the state's motion in Lemonade under advisement following a hearing conducted on August 1st, 2024, and having heard and considered the evidence, admitted exhibits, arguments of counsel, defendant's supplemental submission regarding the state's motion in Lemonade, filed August 13th, 2024, and the state's response to defendant's memorandum of law, filed August 26th of 2024, grants paragraphs 1 through 6 over defendant's objection, and grants paragraphs 8 through 12 over defendant's objection. As it relates to paragraph 7, the burden is on the defendant to show a nexus between Odinism, cult or ritualistic killing. Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Johnny Messer, Elvis Fields, Ned Smith, Rod Abrams, Kagan Klein, Jerry Klein, Ron Logan, and the murders of the 2 victims. The case law is quite clear that the nexus must not be based on speculation, conjecture, rumors, or hearsay, but rather on admissible evidence. The court finds the defense has failed to produce admissible evidence demonstrating a nexus between Odinism, cult, or ritualistic killing. Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Johnny Messer, Elvis Fields, Ned Smith, Rod Abrams, Kagan Klein, Jerry Klein, Ron Logan, and the murders. Therefore, the court grants paragraph 7 of the state's motion in Lemonade over defendant's objection. The court will not permit the evidence submitted by the defense in support of their arguments regarding third-party perpetrators in the trial of this case, as the probative value of such evidence is greatly outweighed by confusion of the issues and its potential to mislead the jury. The court will allow that evidence to support an offer of proof at the trial if one is made by counsel. Jury selection will commence in Allen Superior Court on October 14th, with trial commencing in the Carroll Circuit Court, concluding November 15th of 2024. So she's ordering that the trial end by November 15th. That's interesting. So the third-party perpetrator stuff is not coming in unless they're able to make an offer of proof. And that is what the renewed motion that we went over yesterday is asking the court to do. There's been no decision on that yet. What say you? John Doe. John Doe says Brad Holder and Carroll County prosecutor Nicholas McClellan belong to the same Masonic lodge. David Reese says OJ's defense was able to poke holes in the prosecution's case, and when the lead investigator pleaded the fifth on the stand, it opened the door. That's the argument now, is that the state's witness opened the door by saying that those branches were placed randomly, that there was no intention to the placement or the discarding of those branches on the girls. Thanks, John Beatabot, for the 5 FBI corruption sting warranted by this trial's parameters. OMG, can we expect appellate justice if this farce of a prosecution convicts him? Absolutely. They've already been up to the Supreme Court of Indiana with regard to the judge sua sponte removing Richard Allen's attorneys without his asking them to be removed. For those of you who have been following the trial coverage by all of the amazing YouTubers that are in the courtroom every day, tell me if you've seen any evidence right now that would lean you towards a conviction of Richard Allen. Have you seen any evidence that he committed this crime yet? Stays on the case, says throughout the whole time, they were very secretive. Each year anniversary would string the people along for another year with nothing at all as far as progress in finding the killers. Then boom, it was over 5 years before they arrested Richard Allen. Reeker says at the very least, Kagan Klein's phone was used to have the girls go out there that day. Serenity says even the victim's family claims Odinist connection. Lovely Lyric says there's going to be questions about the Delphi case forever because Judge Gull is being spiteful, I guess. Pebbles, since when does a person have to prove their innocence? Yep. That's what it feels like here. Auntie Bevs. Richard Allen said he saw 3 girls on the trail, and McNick is like, great. He saw this group of 4 girls, but calls them 3 in his filings, so it matches Richard Allen's 3 from his statement. Sketchy. What would Judge Dewey do? We love Judge Dewey K. Arthur from Mississippi. Hi, yeah. I'm so glad you're covering in this case, Melanie. This is the most important case, in my opinion. We can't let the state set precedent with this. Yep, poop show of a trial. Lindsay, bingo. Kagan Klein was catfishing the girls. He is now in prison for child essay materials. There's evidence of communications between him and the girls to meet at the park that day. Hi, little Miss Red Velvet. Good morning. Thought it had to be reasonable doubt. Lots of that here. Margaret says when he first came into public awareness, he didn't look like Bridge Guy to me. He seemed more like a convenient scapegoat. V says KK, Kagan. I think he pronounced it Kagan, was the Anthony Schatz account. There was also a fake Anthony account that was used. There were 2 Anthony accounts, 2 separate people and groups behind each. Sherilyn chimes in. These cases are happening all over the country, Massachusetts, Mississippi, now Indiana. Chelsea B, there hasn't been one piece of actual evidence in this trial to convict on. If anyone can say convict right now, that's not based on evidence. Let's see if anyone has tweeted anything from the courtroom today with regard to any of the testimony that has happened today. Well, Defense Diaries tweeted 3 hours ago. I fully expect today is when the rubber hits the road in the state's case, as the confessions are going to start coming into evidence. I will be as accurate as humanly possible with verbatim memorializing of every word, because in this context, I can't think of a situation wherein words matter is more applicable. Stay tuned. Scott just ran a check on Auntie Bev and Gull. They're cousins. Oh, just kidding. Just kidding. Right, Sherilyn? The jury's not going to know any of this. Serenity hopes Murphy is under protection. Linda Lane says, I truly think he's been set up the way things have been done, in my opinion. Out of Scope says, the scary part is juries, though. Those eyes are close together, must be guilty. Yeah. Right? I didn't like the way she smirked at the trial. Her skirts were too short. Catherine says, I'm hung up on the fact that Richard Allen's phone from 2017 is the only one not found in the house, which most people don't keep old phones, but Richard Allen still had phones from way before 2017. Criminal Network says the girls' bodies were not at the crime scene on February 13th. Fact. It's a lot of information that says that that area was searched on the 13th and that they weren't there. Criminal Network. Just Beth says Idaho is the same. Med 962, can that evidence of the other guy that was talking to the girls who is in prison now be brought in during the defense's turn? Kagan Klein. Judge says nope. That was the order that we just read, and in that order, your message might be old, sorry. She said in that order, the court finds the defense has failed to produce admissible evidence demonstrating a nexus between Odinism, cult, or ritualistic killing. Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Johnny Messer, Elvis Fields, the guy who admitted to spitting on the bodies to his sister, who mysteriously, I think his sister died after that in a house fire. Ned Smith, Rod Abrams, Kagan Klein, that's the guy you're talking about who's in jail. Jerry Klein, Ron Logan, and the murders. The court will allow that evidence to support an offer of proof at the trial if one is made by counsel. So it's a kind of a confusing order. Maybe she's leaving the door open like a crack. He says Richard Allen was not connected to either Anthony account, by the way. No links between Richard Allen and the girls. JD Lyons says this is tragic across the board. Thank you, Team Brittany. Do not post about anyone's family or children who are mentioned here. They have nothing to do with this trial. Thank you. No, the false confessions are coming in. They might start coming in today. Well, what some people are calling false confessions made under duress, threat of harm to Richard Allen's family, and under conditions of having been in solitary confinement in a prison guarded by prison guards who had Odinist patches on their uniforms. I think it was 8 months that he was held before the first confession was allegedly made. No, Kagan's not the spit guy. The spit guy is Elvis. Just Beth, wait until you see the exact list of phones, etc. These people can't be trusted. Jen, I'm struggling to get past the fact that there was no DNA from the defendant at the crime scene. I don't see how that's possible. Elf can't wait for the defense case. Everyone smash the like button while we're here. Smash it. Yeah, Kelly says this sort of thing has been happening in Indiana for decades. I live in Michigan, very close to the border. Bowie Girl says the confessions, the so-called confessions under psychosis while he was in a high security prison in isolation. Hello, Miss Jones, aka Dr. Jones. The condition of these branches, one of them at least was smooth, like it was cut by a saw or some sort of tool. So if you weren't here for that portion of the motion that I read, go back and rewind it. They explain it in painstaking detail. TB85 says the bridge guy video isn't even a section that's visible on the clip it's from. Andrea Burkhart said it looks like a totally different video altogether. She's doing an amazing job reporting every night for hours. She keeps copious notes. Stace says it's really nuts to keep things out, and then later the jury sees what was kept out, and the light bulb often comes on too late. Hi, Mrs. Bucket. Thank you. Judge Gold ruled no mention of Kagan Klein. Right, exactly. That's what she said in her order that we read. Joyce says Andrea Burkhart also said she would find Richard Allen not guilty at this point. Tina says, watch the helicopter footage for the answers. I don't know where I can find that, Tina. Where can we find that helicopter footage? Criminal Network says the sticks on Abby's body and the drawing on Brad Holder's hand that looks like an asterisk is a rune that represents strength. Didn't find any drag marks, did they? I think it was conflicting testimony. Maybe they found a little bit of drag marks. Reality of a second life. Does anyone know if the parents of the girls believe Richard Allen to be guilty? I don't know. False star. Who expects Andrea Burkhardt to have her notes taken by a bailiff at this point? She made a motion to allow the public to examine the exhibits. It was just denied. Just denied. And then the court even said in her order, the remainder of this motion is just a complaint about how the court is conducting this trial. Troy says they said they found one drag mark, but I wonder if it was the branch. Strains credulity yet again. I have merch. Thanks, Jennifer Duncan. I heard one of the girls' grandparents watches Defense Diary, says Catherine. Helicopter footage on Meows and Don. Is that a YouTube channel? All right, I'll look for it. All right, my friends, I have to go for now. Let me know if you would like to continue this conversation. High quality helicopter version on YouTube. Minute 12:29. All right, we'll check it out. Let me know if you'd like to continue this conversation and we can come back tomorrow and do this or later. Smash the like on your way out. I've got to go take care of some mommy things because mommy duties always come first. Absolutely. All right, you got it. You just missed the whole thing. Rewind. It's this short one today. It's only 2 hours. You can do that. Andrea called out that Abby's body was arranged to look like the hanging man. We looked at the tarot cards yesterday. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Anonymous Canadian girl thinks it's so important that we keep talking about this. So sad. Smash the like button. Share the stream. Do all the YouTube-ish things that YouTube likes. Let's get the word out. Keep the conversation going. Oh, Allie Law. Is this Allie Law? Is this Allie Mata? Allie, what do you have? Is this your sock puppet account? Allie, I got to do a mommy thing for like an hour or two. But if you're going to be there when I get back, I'll text you. If this is my own personal Catherine Zeta-Jones, a.k.a. Allie Mata. Doesn't she look like Catherine Zeta-Jones? The hangman, defense motion pointed out the hangman and its Frank's motion or third-party motion. Yeah, we were just reading that this morning. The judge yelled at the gallery yesterday for falling asleep. Yes, and you know who one of the people was that was falling asleep? It was a member of one of the girls' families. Maybe if you didn't make people sleep outside to get a spot in the courtroom, perhaps that might, solve the issue of people falling asleep. I love when you and Allie are together. Me too. All right, my friends, thank the moderators. The moderators are amazing here. That's what makes it so great here for keeping the chat classy. We can go over the charging documents. I have the probable cause affidavit. We can look at that next time. Absolutely 100%. Maybe lunch too. Yeah, they can't get lunch either, right? They have to eat outside in line because there's no you can't just say seat reserved and then come back and get your seat. There's no seat reserved. You can't do that in this courtroom. You have to stand outside in line outside the courtroom during lunch to come back in. And they weren't allowed to bring food into the courthouse originally, but now they're allowed to eat a little something in line. So there's that. Less cruel and inhuman treatment than perhaps Richard Allen received in the prison where he was held in solitary confinement, guarded by prison guards who may or may not have Odinist patches on their uniforms at the time, which then mysteriously disappeared according to the motion that we read yesterday. Keep it classy, my friends. Smash the like button on your way out. As always, I appreciate each and every view, each and every like. You guys are amazing. I love you with all of my heart. Be cool, be kind, be classy. It's so easy. It's really not hard. It will make your life better, I promise. Make sure you have the notification bell set and subscribe. It's free. I will see you guys soon.